maybe just a couple more minutes. And then you're going to set those aside just for a little bit. If we take just a minute or two, is that enough? Anybody need more time than a minute or two? Just kind of watching the wiggling of the top of the pen. And Nathan? So and just as we kind of wrap this piece up, another great piece is that Dennis Small at OSPI, I was at the ESD a number of years ago in a math and technology program. Dennis is the director of educational technology. If we look at ISTE standards, there's computational thinking rooted in ISTE standards. So there's a great blending of not only what we're trying to affect with computer science, but understanding it's not just in this silo, but the more that we can start to understand the computer science will hopefully one day maybe even be its own core content area, but impacted through ed tech. So then when Dennis says, hey, I've got some other money that's available for some things, it really helps, because part of it is hardware.
That's the concern with anything technology based, right? Is the technology is continuing to advance and to progress.
Yeah.
So like, you know, what we need right now, like, is maybe not what we're going to need in 5 years,
Sure.
right? So like,
but if we can really grasp this aspect of computational thinking, then we start to take our hands off of the technology to be able to say, how do we think about solving problems? Computational thinking, there's 4 pillars: abstraction, decomposition, pattern identification, and algorithms. Well, if I just, on that last one, algorithms, when a kindergarten teacher has a poster in the room that says boys and girls, remember, this is how we leave the room. First we do this, then we do, then we do, then we do. Well, that's a script. My son's was a lead programmer at DigiPen. Well, that's an algorithm. And if the kids all the wheels came off and one day they're just doing all of these crazy things, they come back in the next day and I put ladybug little stickers on my poster. Miss, what's that? Mister, what's that? Well, there were bugs in our program, boys and girls. We're going to debug this because we're going to go back through so we can start to embed computational thinking in some of those pillars and never have our hands on a device. Lots of unplugged activities, lots of train of thoughts and mindsets that aren't so predicated on I have to have a device in front of me, but I'm thinking about a 21st century, a complex problem, and now I've got some tools. Again, I've been in education forever, and those 4, when I was teaching at Wapato Middle School in the early 1990s, as a math teacher and a science teacher, I did all of those. Never really thought about it from a lens of computer science or computational thinking. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of hone in. You have this document in front of you, and we're going to use that and probably this side first, just for a moment, where we're going to talk about rationales. And a rationale is a reason. What's our reason for doing something? And in this case, what's our reason for moving down this lane, moving forward on this journey for computer science? We refer to, and this is when I say we, the work through CS for All, they look at these as impact areas. If we do, it impacts this one particular area. So whether you can read it on the screen or it's the same thing on your handout, what CS for All, that first started as CS NYC. They were really just focused on what's happening in New York City, because folks, we've got over 1 million kids here, and how do we, if we're really true about our goal, how do we move kids from here to here? The number of students that have equitable access to quality computer science education, they have a problem to try to solve in New York City. In their research, they say that most of the time when people are thinking about, well, we want to do computer science for this reason, it roots down into these 7 areas: equity and social justice, competencies and literacies, citizenship and civic engagement, technological, social, and scientific innovation, economic and workforce development, school reform and improvement, personal agency, joy, and fulfillment. But most of the time, if I had a box full of rationales that came from the collective staff, K-12 staff here in the district, we could probably sort those into those 7 buckets. In the activity that we're going to do, you're going to identify with some of the statements that are on the other side. But here's an example. If somebody in this room said, we should teach computer science because we need more software engineers, is that valid? Yeah. Yeah, we're going to need more and more of them. If we did that, we would identify in this icon here, look to your paper, which area does that represent?
Economic workforce development.
Yeah, that makes sense. That seems like an easy connection. This is workforce. If we had a statement that said, well, we need to promote a more diverse tech workforce, not only does it impact this, but what's the icon with the 2 hands? Equity, social justice. That this type of a statement, I can impact 2 of these by saying we need to promote a more diverse tech workforce. And then we need to think about, okay, in some of our, just across the ESD 105 region, when we look at any computer science, high school computer science class, and we look at the demographics of that district, is it represented in the population of that class? If we look at the distribution of boys and girls in that district, are those classes distributed equally or close to that in those CS classes? Most of the time, to both of those questions, it's not. So what can we do at those younger ages to have girls and boys both say, that's what I want to be? I was talking with Lucy, right? In the back about some, just strategies and just great activities and efforts of being able to have any student in this district look to a poster, watch a video, and say, I see myself. That's me. That's what I want to do. Because they envision themselves as that being able to, that's possible for them. A lot of research has said by 3rd grade, more and more girls have already patterned themselves of thinking, that's not for me. 3rd grade. That they're saying, no, that's not for girls, that's not for me. So boy, we've got some work to do if there's any type of pattern of that is represented in any of our schools. Here's another that just identifies our tech is designed by privileged groups. Their biases get embedded. CS can help. How do we make sure that these privileged groups that are designing, that are coding, that are building and developing are more representative of our, whether it's a company that's here in this area, that students from this district are employed by, they don't leave home. I know there's a lot of things, this adage of if we educate them, if we really empower them, they leave and they don't come back. Boy, you think about the technological advancements in agriculture, like you saw that cabbage bot. There's so much that between right now and when your 5th graders are ready for the workforce, those jobs aren't created yet. Those things will be so incredibly diverse and complicated that need this computational thinking, that need computer science related skills. And you can start now. We can start now of getting kids thinking, I can do that. My dad always worked for, and I don't know the name of a company out here. What's one ag company in the area? Stimel. Yeah, my dad, he's worked there for 40 years. Boy, I'd love to carry on that tradition. I'm not going to do what my dad did. Chances are that job won't be around. But that student could still have that desire met and still carry on that legacy, only becomes doing something far more related to computer science than maybe the work that his dad is currently doing. Okay, so there's the set. We're going to use those in just a moment. What I want you to do is look on the back side, and you see the poster has 14 pictures. Your handout has 15. I want you to identify individually what are your top 3. Read down through those and select excuse me, your top 3 statements of why we should teach computer science. And mark them, and then we're going to do some tallying in just a bit. And then we're going to have them come up. And maybe, if it's okay with you, I might just draw some lines to give us some regions. I'll just use one of those. Anyone need more time? Good to go? Awesome. Okay. So you've identified individually your rationales, 3 of them, for why this district should embark and really have a focused effort with computer science. We're going to tally those. So we're just going to go through the room, and if you'll just share, here's what I'd like to have you do. If you can help us, it'll just go a little faster. You'll notice that all of them then have the icon. And if you'll use the front side to be able to just tell us that, oh, hey, I have 1 for school reform and improvement. I have 1 for citizenship and civic engagement. If you'll kind of help us translate your statements, which of those 7 impact areas do they fall into? What Angelica is going to do is just tally those up on the board. Does that make sense? It's been a long time since I've given class instructions, but I do remember my kids going, no, that doesn't make any mystery, that makes no sense. Okay, so we'll start over here. Dan, if you could start us off.
I have 1 for economic and workforce development, 1 for competencies and literacy, and then also 1 for school reform and improvement.
We'll just go through the...
1 for economic, 1 for citizenship, and 1 for equity and justice.
I have 1 for competencies, I have 1 for technology, and 1 for school reform.
1 for economic, 2 for school reform.
1 for citizenship, 1 for economic, 1 for school reform.
I have 1 for competency, 1 for economic, and 1 for school reform.
Mine are all 1, so personal agency, citizenship, and economic.
2 for technological, social, and scientific innovation.
We're going to pause right there. So halfway through the group, what's emerging?
Economic and school reform.
Yeah, but it's that it's a collective vision. It's not an individual. It's not someone in a closed door saying, okay, closed room, close the door and saying, yeah, I'm going to make a decision. But now there's impact that's being shared across a group larger than the 6 people that went through the training. Thank you.
I have 1 for equity, 1 for competencies, and 1 for personal agency.
Equity, technological, and economic.
Competency, equity, and
Equity, economic workforce, and personal agency.
2 equity and 1 personal agency.
Personal agency, school reform, and technological.
Competency, economic, school reform.
2 competencies and 1 school reform.
Personal agency, school reform, equity.
Personal, economic, and equity.
Okay, so 10, 5.
So I'm just going to write your totals. So for competencies, it looks like 8. Is that correct?
Yes.
Let's turn this right. We got 8.
7.
Personal agency.
7.
7. Citizenship.
3.
3. Economic workforce.
10.
10. School reform,
11.
11. Technological,
5.
social, 5. Equity, social,
10.
10. Is there a right answer? Certainly not. And these are from your own personal perspective of what you believe. And I just asked you to pick 3. So if we look at which ones had the highest number at this point in time, school reform and improvement with 11, so, equity and social justice at 10, and economic and workforce development at 10. Doesn't mean that any of the others, because we have 8 and 7, these are important. Just right now, checking the pulse of a group, it looks like those are 3 areas. So important. And do you remember, Angelica, or from your work that you guys did as a small group, were your 3?
Let's see, we had somewhere here. Equity and social justice, citizenship, and civic engagement were a tie for our top 2, and then we had competencies and literacy and technological for a tie for our top 2.
So some variance. Is that okay? You get a bigger group, you're bound to have, it's not, it would be unique that it's all in a lane together, but important. And to me, I think important because this sends a great message. It wasn't about what 6 people in a group at the ESD decided. It's coming back to a district and saying, what do we believe? And so much so that, hey, let's do this with a larger subset of our staff, a bigger cross-section across the staff. So our next piece of it, and you hang on to this, you can hang on to this piece, and then maybe down the road, do you want to do this with a larger body, or do it again? Maybe do it with school board. There's lots of ways to be able to pull in perspectives. So just maybe if you could group into groups of 3 or 4, so a couple tables together, just a discussion. What do you think about those 3 from this group? And again, Angelica, I'm going to move over on this side, different color.
Yeah.
What were the ones from yours?
Ours were equity and social justice.
Equity, hold on, find it, equity here.
I'm missing a page. Oh, citizenship and civic engagement.
Citizenship.
And then competency is the technological one.
So one of the 3, equity.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, I'll pull you back together. In your groups, if you had any opportunity here, I heard some folks saying, well, this is what I feel is important. That is huge. I'm just feeling, if you saw that, even if yours weren't represented here, because in any type of endeavor like this, I might say, oh, well, the ones that I thought were important aren't. I have to, if I'm sitting in a chair in this room, or if I'm a vocal member of the district, I have to decide, I still understand a greater rationale for why we might, and I can support that. Or I say, boy, I really, boy, Mr. Chairman, I want to talk. I still feel really strongly that we don't want to lose another aspect. Again, there's no right answer. If we did this at Toppenish, if we did this at West Valley, if we went out to Sela, it'd be different. And so the more that you do it, the fact that a subset, I celebrate that, well, one of the 3 from an earlier group was represented up here. It would have been like magic. I would have bought lotto tickets if all 3 would have matched up. It didn't have to be that way. So it's always about checking a pulse. Where are we at? What do we believe? If we're so connected to what we aspire for our students in this area. Because staff can come and go. Who remains? Kids. By and large, the kids are here. So if the kids are going to be here, then what moves do we make? Because regardless of who comes and goes, we want to do something for our students, that they see value, they see a path, they see a future. So I'm not going to go through these and ask for, unless anyone says, hey, I'd like to just share something that came out of our group discussion related to this activity. Anyone? I feel like Ferris Bueller.
We were kind of just saying that some of them are kind of the same.
Yeah.
Embedded in each other. We just kind of noticed that thing.
That came up in our statewide, or our ESD, we had 7 districts that came in. And just so you know, we had the first script training in the state. So this new effort coming in, I was so proud of Walluk and other districts, 6 others. Shannon Thiessen from OSPI had enough money to award 11 small mini grants for this effort, $4,500. So to offset some of the costs of getting folks, like here, getting folks sub costs, getting people to the ESD. Out of 11, our region, we had 6 of the 11. If Zilla would have been a little faster, if Justin Urian, the assistant soup, would have pressed just a couple seconds earlier, we would have had 7 of the 11. What does that say? It says that this, our region, I refer to us always as, we're a dry sponge. We are soaking this up because we know that this makes a difference. And by and large, up to this point, it's been about geography. So many cool things happening up in Puget Sound. Shouldn't be, not 21st century, should never be about geography. So it should be about our values, our passion, and what we want for our kids. Thank you, Phil, for sharing. And that comment did come out that, wow, there's a lot. Even though mine weren't represented, I can see there's some nexus of the ones I did select and some of the others. So now we're going to do this activity. This was the starting of some heat mapping. So up here, we've identified, and if I just circle, not that you need it, I'll just do it, but here's the 3. Here's where I want you to then, boys and girls, in an organized manner, you're going to bring your Post-it notes, take a look at those, and it doesn't, your Post-it notes don't have to align to those 3, because your Post-it note really might, something that you wrote down may have more to do with technological, social, and scientific innovation. So maybe before you come up, take a look at this, and then start to sort your Post-it notes. Where do they go in the kind of the color coding fashion? Because you know, like these top 2 are going to come up to economic and workforce development. And in a moment, we're going to have you come up and put your Post-it notes. And the reason that we did it color coding is even from the back of the room, we should be able to see which ones were the purpose of education. Those were the pink ones, and where do they land? And the yellow, the student needs, where do those fall out? And then the blue is the district initiatives. When you are ready, come on up with your Post-it notes, and you anywhere along the white paper, and let's try to keep it within the borders of the white paper, but go ahead and put your Post-it notes up. Yeah.
So some of these have specific to do with.
I'm going to get up just to stand.
Bad directions of life. Yeah, so you could, if you wanted to, without even writing more, you could just then, don't write them. Let's say, hey, I have 4 of those, I'm going to take 4 of these blue, and then I place them in different spots.
Specific stuff. This is.
I should have been more explicit of saying 1 per Post-it note. Yeah, so sorry about that. Folks, I know I may have given you some bad instructions. Your comments, if they were 1 comment per Post-it note, then you could go ahead and put them up. If you put a whole bunch of on one, just grab some extra of the same color, and then those blank ones will still represent your other thinking. So you need to just look around. And
Yes, you can.
And some of them are up at the front table.
Every time we stand up.
I just look scared.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap this part of the morning up. But let's take a moment and just take a look. Remember the color coding of this. So pink were the purposes of education, yellow were student needs, blue were the major initiatives. If I just want to hone in on your top 3 impact areas, so one of them was school reform and improvement, pretty healthy collection of those, and a smattering across all three of these perspectives for school reform and improvement. If we look either to workforce, economic and workforce development, or to equity and social justice, again, pretty good. Now, you guys have a better perspective than I do from here. It's raining. Did the majority of the Post-it notes fall in those three areas?
I would say so.
Very interesting. Was it planned that way? Not at all. This is like those magicians on America's Got Talent. That, oh, how'd that happen? So, but it's really interesting then of where these fell. Does it mean that any of them that are outside here are really ones we don't want to consider or that aren't valid? Not at all. But again, just a snapshot at this point in time of where the district, you folks representing the district, where are we at? I think we're about ready to, we've already done this piece here. We've talked about that element. I should have just advanced it. So how does it align with the overall vision? So we've done that heat mapping here to be able to look at where your comments and your thoughts align with these 7 impact areas. I'm going to stop here. I'm not going to go beyond. This was really then some additional work. There's some other slides here that I kept in case we had some extra time. But the district team that came to script then took this, created a vision statement, and you have that on your website.
Yeah.
Do you want to share that?
Yeah. So
We're not going to then take time right now. I hope that's all right, that we're not going to try to come up with a different mission statement or vision statement. But here's what came out of that group. But it may be that you folks as a team decide, does this resonate? Or do we need to maybe take a look at rephrasing that? So at the top, right?
yeah, so right here. So we should teach CS because it is a fundamental discipline that all students need to be exposed to in order to succeed in career and in life. Sort of what we came up with as a group, as sort of our, why are we building computer science here in the district? We want them to be exposed to it, not experts in it, but at least aware of what they're doing, what it is, so that when they get out beyond high school, they can succeed.
So I'm going to pause here and not go any further in. Again, there's some other slides that are more representative of the work that the group did. But the fact that Angelica has this in a real public forum for you folks to be able to revisit, to then on your own be thinking about, does that statement really embrace this type of a perspective from this subset of the district staff is really important. You don't want to just go, oh, well then, okay, I guess that's good. You want to be thinking about if we move forward, do we move forward under a collective vision? Does that vision statement make sense for all of us? At some point, that you can try to have the whole district involved in writing a mission statement or a vision statement. I don't know if that's where you want to spend your energy. I tend to not do that. But I think it's important to be able to take a look at this. You've experienced the same type of work that the group did in setting the vision and being able to look at these different perspectives. So I think there's maybe some future discussion at other team, your group meetings that you have. So we can probably back out of this slide deck and go back to your original. The next piece on the agenda just talks about some state mandates. There's some things that are out there that we really want you folks to be aware of. And let's see, where's my little cheat sheet? I mentioned this one earlier. Substitute House Bill 1577 is in effect for this year. It's not a heavy hammer. It's just saying that a district now is required to report the number of computer science classes. We talked earlier about, well, what's that mean? What is computer science? So we're working, and Shannon Thiessen at OSPI has convened committees to be able to have a multi-tiered approach to that answer, to that question. What is computer science? What does it mean? What does it not mean? Angelica gave some examples, non-examples. So we're working on that, but by June 30th, I think,
Yeah.
a district is going to need to report where are we at. So some districts will say, well, we have two. We have an intro, we have an AP class. This is looking at computer science courses. Right now, there's no delineation that it has to be AP. Anything that falls under that definition that we'll soon get from OSPI, as far as this is what we mean when we say computer science class. This is just one. If you look at the rationale down below, I think it was there, let's see. Maybe we don't have impact.
I don't think I have it in
Okay,
there.
I got it here. Here's what they wrote, that the state would have a better understanding, if we do this, of the demographics of students enrolled in computer science courses, qualifications of teachers leading computer science courses, and schools where computer science is taught. Checking the pulse. State feels compelled. We need some information so we know where are we at right now as a state with regards to computer science. So that's one piece of legislation that is out. The next one is Senate Bill 5088. This is in the future. So by the year 22-23, but it is passed. So this is law. That by 22-23 school year, each district that has a high school will need to provide an opportunity for access to at least an elective computer science course that's available to all high school students. So where are we at right now in 19-20 school year? We've got a few years to get ready for this. But this is a requirement that we must have at least an elective class. So, and at the high school right now, do you have classes that are identified as computer science?
We have a one semester.
Okay. So it's not like, oh, what are we going to do? Yikes. But how do we make sure that we not only have the class, we've got kids that are wanting to take a class. So what do we do down in that foundational year, the elementary and the middle school, to get kids ready to say, wow, I'm all about that, because I see myself as being that type of, that's what I want to do when I get older. Or whatever career I pick, I know it's going to involve. They watch those kind of videos like you saw earlier, and they already know. I want to do something with music, but they know it really involves computer science.
Right.
No, that's okay, yeah. I don't know if there's anything else there. I know that there's a lot of avenues. It's not a narrow trajectory to be able to satisfy this. There's a couple programs, and I know that Walluke is considering one that's called Teals. Teals is a program that was started by Kevin Wang. He was a former educator, now he's at Microsoft. And he created a program. What he does is his program matches an industry expert, someone that works out in a field that's an industry expert who can teach a computer science class, maybe a programmer, with a school that says, hey, we need to get a computer science class up and running. So he marries those, he connects those. I mentioned my son, he was a lead programmer at DigiPen. Now he's working at a company called Redlands. And Redlands has taken the contract from Microsoft to take Minecraft and upgrade it to kind of flip it. And so that's what my son's doing right now. So he's just, he's my 401k. That's what I've invested in that my whole life. And man, I'm hoping for a better return. When he went to DigiPen, a roommate of his was a year ahead of him, got out, quickly landed a job at Microsoft, and within 6 months, he had a 6-figure income. And I said, Dad, Mike, he paid off his mom and dad's house. And then he thought about what he said. well, there wasn't much left. Hey, son, it's okay, Yeah, wow, isn't that something? What a Mike, gosh, love that kid. So, being able to prepare that Teals program is a great way. Some districts like that. They say, wow, we can take an industry expert like my son. If my son, who starts work about 10, now he works until maybe 1 in the morning, but he's not like us, educators, he's going, Dad, he's so silly, getting up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, getting into your classroom at 6:30, and Ryan lands at his desk about 10 o'clock. But then he works, the whole time, but he's available first period. So what Teals does, it says, hey, industry expert, would you be willing to work at this school? And they connect, and they train these folks so that they understand the curriculum. And then there's a very low cost in. Usually there's no cost to Microsoft. And what you're doing, the stipend that you pay for is really paying for any of the time of that industry expert who comes in in this area, probably be through Skype, or they have a different program similar to Skype. But that's one avenue, the Teals. Teals uses a program called Beauty and Joy of Computing, BJC. It's a Blockly-based coding language that's built from an enhancement of Scratch. So it's called Snap. And they use that to teach the class because in that AP class, the test that the students would take is language agnostic. Doesn't matter what, you don't have to use Python, you don't have to use C++ or anything more rigorous. That block-based coding, anything that's on the test, you can cover through that type of, kids can understand the basics through that. There's some trainings that are going on later this year where if a teacher takes that training, there isn't anything else that's needed for that teacher to then say, I'm certified to teach computer science at my high school. It's not like you have to then go through the State Board of Education and jump through other hoops. Take that class, Larry Davison, you're now qualified, certified to teach that class at a high school level. So there's some easier avenues in, as you always are looking for, how do we find someone that has a degree or an endorsement? Or, that's a harder find. But here's some things that a committed staff member and a district could say, here's some avenues that we'll go into. The last one is the CTE, and this, the House Bill 1599 is just the multiple pathways. We just are calling out one of those. One of the multiple pathways is CTE. So when we start thinking about, of all of those pathways, alternate pathways for graduation, which one has a really strong nexus to computer science would be CTE. A lot of our schools that are taking on Teals are doing it through CTE. So there's frameworks that are already written, so it's an easy kind of an access. If a district says, hey, we're going to find our teacher, we're going to make sure that we can teach that through a CTE class.
I think we've done Teals before, like
Yeah,
maybe
2 years
3 or
ago.
4 years ago.
Yep.
We have.
Yeah.
Yeah, Arthur Morgan set it up. I actually sat in one when we had Microsoft experts in the morning with our kiddos. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I have never heard anything. There's one district who currently is in Teals who aspires to have all of their students coding before they leave 8th grade. They are doing Python. That's our desire. Well, block-based coding, like I said, if you're going to use that class, and there's other Teals courses that don't, there's only one that really subscribes to using the block-based coding, but the district said, we don't really feel that this is meeting our needs well because we want to move our middle school kids through Python. Then they get to high school and then they step back into this other class where they're using block-based coding. They see a rub. I think the more that I'm conversant in multiple languages, more computer programming systems, I'm stronger. There's not just one way to untie the knot in my shoestring. There's a lot of ways to do that. There's not just one way to approach this. So, but whatever a district feels, hey, whatever you need from me, I'll support you. But I do think both of those are really valid avenues. I think that was it, is it not?
I have a video.
Okay.
Yeah, so this will just sort of wrap up the morning. We'll have a break and then we'll come back and do a little review over the script. This is a video that just sort of explains the new economy and sort of the new, sort of goes that high school and beyond, that CTE pathway that we're sort of moving to.
This came from Mark Cheney. How many of you know Mark? He's our STEM director at the ESD. And Hugo Moreno is our new CTE, career and college readiness coordinator. So great resources if you need additional information.
There is a widespread belief that the job market is just waiting for hordes of ambitious, eager young graduates to slide into high-paying jobs in the corner office. They just need to go to college, right? Well, the data tells a different story. Charts like this imply a correlation between higher income and additional education, showing on average that a person with a university degree earns far more money than the average person without a high school diploma. This reliance on averages and perceived higher earnings for having a four-year degree has fueled a college-for-all philosophy, causing educators and parents to encourage going to the university, any university, to major in anything in pursuit of social mobility and financial prosperity. This belief has increased college and university enrollment to an all-time high, resulting in 66% of high school graduates in this country enrolling in higher education right after high school. That's 2 out of 3. The problem isn't that we need more students to attend college. The problem is too many students who enter are not completing. For most college students, it takes too long and they simply lose interest. Others are juggling too much, or they discovered they picked the wrong major or attended the wrong institution for them. Since most students are told a university degree guarantees a higher salary, many delay their career planning until after college graduation, resulting in 62% of students reporting they feel disengaged because they don't see the connection between their coursework and their future career. And so today, only a quarter of those that initially enroll will finish a bachelor's degree. You see, our educational system is very well intentioned, but incredibly misaligned. The pendulum has swung too far towards college preparation at any cost and away from skill attainment. We even encourage a college-going culture as early as elementary school, with university pennants decorating second-grade classrooms, and we spend an exorbitant amount of time in high school getting into college. Education is core to our economy, but in order to guide our educational systems and maximize future income, we must understand this misalignment between education and our workforce. At some point in recent history, we have transitioned from asking the more important question of what knowledge and skills do you need to be employable and to contribute to your community, to now simply asking, where are you going to college? When in reality, not every degree is direct preparation for employment. With rising education costs, a shrinking job market, and the oversaturation of some academic majors in the workforce, graduates take positions that do not require the education they have received, and often with debt they cannot afford. In fact, this misalignment between degrees and job skills causes half of university graduates to be underemployed in what are called gray-collar jobs, and 33% of college graduates are still underemployed well into their 30s. We know that success in today's world depends on aligning a student's academics with both their skills and available job opportunities. Yet there is growing evidence of a skills gap in which many Americans are not receiving the essential skills that are needed. Recently, a survey was conducted to find out if the skills found within the local workforce match the skills that employers need in the new economy. We found that employers experience difficulty finding applicants with strong technical skills, as well as problem-solving skills, applied math skills, and basic technical training. Unlike 3 generations ago, having hands-on skills and perfecting what you're good at can be more valuable in today's economy than getting a degree in something simply to get one. In fact, when hiring, business leaders say a candidate's knowledge and applied skills in a specific field are more important factors than where the candidate went to school or their college major. The economy and the world have dramatically changed. In 1960, when taking into account all jobs in the American economy, 20% required a 4-year degree or higher, 20% were technical jobs requiring skilled training, and 60% were classified as unskilled. But what's the right percentage to meet the labor market demand for tomorrow? Georgetown University predicts only 33% of all jobs will require a 4-year degree or more in the future, while the overwhelming majority will be highly skilled jobs requiring professional and technical training at the credential or associate's degree level. The true ratio of jobs in our economy is 1 to 7. For every occupation that requires a master's degree or more, approximately 2 professional jobs require a university degree, and there are over half a dozen jobs requiring a 1-year certificate or 2-year degree. And each of these technicians are in very high-skilled areas that are in great demand. So while most jobs in the future will require some education and training beyond high school, the majority of occupations will not require a bachelor's degree or more. It was the same in 1960, the same in 2000, and will be the same in 2040. Very well intentioned, the recent college for all rhetoric is often misinterpreted as university for all. This message needs to be significantly broadened to a post-high school credential for all. Students at various educational levels have left school without essential skills, setting up our children for failure, costing them and taxpayers millions, all while the labor market is desperate for highly trained, skilled technicians. One of the essential purposes of education should be to help students develop the knowledge and skills needed to search for and obtain work that they find satisfying. Fortunately, today's students no longer need to decide between higher education or career preparation. It's possible and increasingly necessary to achieve both. So how do you position yourself for satisfying in-demand jobs? Let's say you were considering a career as either an electrician or a business manager. You would find that the average annual income for electricians is $53,000, only about half of the $99,000 average wage for management occupations. So at first glance, it looks as if getting a bachelor's degree in business is a no-brainer. But adding skills and ability into the picture adds a whole new dynamic. What if you have the potential to become an excellent electrician, but lack the skills and ability to be an excellent manager? then you should be looking at projected incomes towards the bottom of the pay scale for managers and towards the top for electricians. You would then discover that electricians near the top of the pay scale make around $90,000, far higher than the income of a manager near the bottom of the pay scale at $44,000. Now, this is just one example, but the concept is true throughout all industries. The claim that you will make more money with an increased amount of education is not necessarily inaccurate, it's just incomplete. That advice is based just on the averages, but no one is perfectly average. Everyone has unique skills, talents, and gifts. Truth is, the income for the top individuals in a wide variety of technical jobs is far higher than the average income for occupations requiring a 4-year degree. Nationally, associate degree earners range between $29,000 and $76,000, while bachelor's recipients earn between $37,000 and $102,000. But this data only accounts for the 25th percentile to the 75th percentile of full-time adult workers. This means 25% of associate degree holders earn more than $76,000 annually, while 25% of bachelor's degree holders earn less than $37,000. Our world has changed, and the university degree is no longer the guaranteed path towards financial success as it was for previous generations. And even if you do earn one, that education alone may not be enough. In today's highly technical, knowledge-based economy, employers want to know what you can do, and what you can do well, not just what degree hangs on your wall. And new and emerging occupations in every industry now require a combination of academic knowledge and technical ability. One without the other is insufficient. We need to ensure we're providing students with all the essential skills required to be competitive upon graduation. So before enrolling in classes or deciding what you're going to do next in your life, step 1 is self-exploration. Take multiple assessments and really analyze your talents and strengths. Step 2 is career exploration. Understand the jobs available, the income ranges they pay, and evaluate both the knowledge and skills they require. After researching all the possibilities, then engage in career planning by setting a flexible career goal based on your personality and abilities and not just your interests. This doesn't have to be what you want to do for the rest of your life, just set a goal of what you want to do first. Only then can you develop a skills-based education plan, including your tentative career goal with multiple education and training options both inside and outside the classroom. This could include community college, military service, a university, volunteering, registered apprenticeship programs, industry certifications, or gaining work experience. There are multiple paths to success. This is especially true if you are entrepreneurial. 77% of students want to be their own boss, and creating good jobs while rebuilding America's middle class hinges on the success of small businesses and startups. The new secret to success is to create ample opportunities to explore and hone one's skills and to choose an initial career aligned with who you are. This alignment will help ensure one's position at the top of each pay scale. For the sake of our students, our families, and our country, we can't afford to get this wrong any longer. The time has come to redefine the goal for our students. Is the goal simply graduation or degree attainment? Or is the ultimate goal a relevant education to secure a well-paying career where they are both fulfilled and competitive in today's fierce job market? To ultimately secure a competitive advantage in the new economy, all students need a rigorous general education combined with applied technical skills, industry-recognized certifications, and specific preparation for employment. Will they be ready?
So one of the skills that is really, really relevant is that computer science skill. Learning problem solving, learning how to, attack something and go against it and come back to it if it doesn't work the first time. It's a skill that's relevant for any career, and it's something that I really think our kids need to know in order to be prepared for whatever job they decide to go for. So that video just sort of explains some of the new stuff that's coming and the fact that it's very much skill-based. Looking at what you can do in that career, not just if you have the degree in the career.
And I mentioned my son as a lead programmer at DigiPen. Who you think, oh, he's lead programmer, he codes. And he said, Dad, I should code more than I do. I should program more. He says, most of the time I'm in front of a whiteboard with my team who, we have a client, and our client has a problem. And the client may be Boeing, or the client may be, what couple of years he was working with Andretti Autosports for the Indy 500, so working with that race team. But they have a problem, let's break it apart. Let's get this down into buckets, let's start working. Then we start writing some code. But Ryan says, I spend more time in front of a whiteboard breaking problems down, trying to then think through the critical thinking that's necessary. And then we've got folks that are going to start writing code to get to some of those elements. But like what Angelica is mentioning, those critical problem solving, those core 4 pillars of computational thinking. How do I decompose? Well, that's what Ryan's doing when he says, here's a big problem. But we can't take that. That's a big bite out of that elephant. Let's break it down. What are the sub-problems there that we can start to break apart? So.
All right, so we're going to take about a 15-minute break. We'll come back at 9:45.
7 in a math and technology program that was really heavy to the equipment, the devices, the infrastructure. So stepped away. I was at OSPI for 2 years in leading a statewide math program. 2009, that was not a good year for a lot of programs at ESD or at the OSPI state level. That program was cut. I went to Toppenish for 8 years. Now back at the ESD, we're doing a lot of trying to find ways, especially at the elementary level, to make this digestible, to make it easy. And what I hold in my hands here are just one example of how vocabulary alone can be the lightest lift. When instead of thinking, yikes, now I have another stack of standards to try to absorb, or even spend time to understand how those fit in my current work. If I use vocabulary in a really strategic way, like I was mentioning, the list on the wall is an algorithm. This was one iteration of a list that came out of code.org. Ways that the highlighted were for primary, that out of all of this that I could use across K-12, here are some words that I could use and really focus in to help my kids, to connect my kids to the world that they love, which is this technological world. How do I do that, even if I just start with vocabulary? That if myself and my team members at 3rd grade, my PLC, or within a building, if we say, you know what, we're committed to this, we understand it's heavy, it's a lift. So let's start with a light lift, and let's just start with some intentional use of terminology across the building. So if I'm math, science, ELA, whatever the subject area, let's find ways to embed these 6 words. Let's just start with that across the week or across a period of time. We get, it's like in the circus, we get that plate spinning, we're using those words, let's pick up a few more and make that intentional effort of connecting the work that we're doing. I'm not changing anything about what the teachers are set to do with their unit planning for ELA. I'm going to incorporate some other terminology, and I'm going to be intentional about making a connection, a nexus between that work and the work of a computer scientist, of a programmer. And so there are ways, and I understand, in any effort, what's the yin and the yang? What's the cost? Is there a money cost, a time cost? And so I want you to know my role at the ESD is not to come in with, oh, this really cool stuff, and man, this is exciting. And I feel like, John, if you're old enough, John Belushi in the movie Animal House, where he's going, hey, come on, everybody, come with me. So, and then I turn around and folks are going, no, because there's too many roadblocks, there's too many other things. We're trying to find ways to help this be digestible. I really think that vocabulary is one. And then from there, we look at some other avenues where maybe with the current systems that you have, like Scratch, you don't have to go buy new devices, and it's free. It comes out of MIT. Scratch Junior is one for pre-readers. Again, and it's an app that you then load onto a tablet or an iPad. But no cost involved. Use your current equipment. But just to be able to get kids into an arena of, to me, it's all about helping them create. Because in that story I told you about with that ELA, that 8th grade teacher, every student's work was different. Every student had an opportunity to solve their problem in their way. To me, that's the key. How can we help kids create and solve a problem?
Any other concerns or roadblocks that you can see at the moment that could impact our work or the work that we're about to start with this? Any questions about the results that we had from the script training? All right, so next steps. So this afternoon, our committee is going to be looking at the standards. What standards are we already hitting within our curriculum? We're already hitting that. We don't need to hit it again. That's not what our focus is. It's finding those different areas that we're not yet hitting, and where can we input those, or maybe that's the class that we need to create, or whatever, as our thing there. How do we inform the community, the staff, our students, create those partnerships? That's sort of the next step for us. What are we doing next to sort of make sure that it's not a August, days before school, all of a sudden, hey guys, you're going to be now teaching this. It's how do we get our teachers prepared so that they're not surprised by this? Because that is always that fear. We don't want to add more to their plate. We want to make sure that it's something that can be sustainable and something that they can do long term. And making sure that, at the high school or the junior high, that those teachers are aware that this is something that their kids can maybe be interested in and talking about it with them. Hey, I think you're really good at this. I really, think you should maybe take this class when you're signing up for the high school classes. Getting those conversations and making sure that our teachers are aware that this is something that we really are passionate about, and also making sure that our community is aware of this. Hey, I know that this is something completely new to you and your family, but this is what we're doing, and this is what we want your kids to be interested in, so that they can have those conversations at home. It's not something that's only at home, they never talk about it, or only at school and they never talk about it beyond that. We want something that can be supported by the whole community. So having those conversations. And then how do I update you guys as admin if you aren't coming to every meeting? How do I keep you guys up to date on what we're doing? As of right now, I'm doing that through here. But is that something that you want after each meeting, me to just add that stuff here, or do you want an email? How do you want to keep up to date on our work as a committee towards creating this, so that you are aware of, okay, that sounds fine, but that's not going to work over here at Maddow Elementary. Okay, that's something we'll have to be aware of when we can talk about at the next meeting. We want to make sure that there's that full conversation. It's completely visible to every step of the way. That's the only way I can see that this is going to be something sustainable and possible. And then, when's our next meeting? Is this something that, our committee, we meet once a month and we work on this, and we're working on that, and then this is something, that maybe we get the principals in 3 months and tell them this is what we've done the last 2 months, or which way, communication is definitely something I'm really wanting to focus on these next few minutes. Anybody have anything to say?
I have a question. The site that you have, is that live, or is that just for us to see?
It's live, and you can see it. It's as long as you have the link. Like, the link isn't found anywhere except for right here at the moment.
So nobody else has access to it?
No.
This is just live for employees? So it might be nice if you added even a tab that just had the notes for the meetings, and it's a one-stop shop.
Okay.
So that we can always refer back or move forward. So you're not doing double work?
Yes.
Like emailing all the information and then putting it on?
And I'm not sure if you guys have seen, but I do have the Swivel Setup in the back, and that has been recording our meeting today. I will be editing it, sort of making the different clips and that kind of stuff and bringing it together. And that is something as well that I can just put as our notes for the day, and you can go on, you can go through and see what I have, and then just have a link to the slides or whatever, if that would work well for you guys. And that can just be another link or put into the computer science resources or whatever. Anything else?
Larry, what do you recommend? This team coming together again in the spring, or the working group and admin going like you did this morning for a couple hours? What would be your recommendation?
And before I respond to that, I want to commend you, because sometimes it's about context, and you don't know where are we behind everybody, or where are we at as a district? And so if I think about just the 7 districts that came to that training, and again, we had more districts in that one training in our region than all of the other trainings that have happened since. There's been 4 script trainings. We still outnumbered all of those others just in what happened in Yakima. So you're a part of a movement of trying to find a way across the state of bringing in this tool and determining how do we take some next steps and strategically plan for computer science. Within those 7, there's no one else doing what you're doing today. I'm always checking. I look in the mirror and say, what's my responsibility? We brought this training here. Now how do I support? There's no other of those 7 districts doing this type of work of taking that small group and expanding it out and looking for additional perspectives. Are we all on the same track? Or being able to have those really tough conversations about what's going to be the thing that will derail it. Because with any good initiative, if we're not really cognizant of where that left hook is going to kind of come from, then there's things that really stall efforts. So you want to be, just intentional. You want to be forthright. You want to be really transparent with, I believe in this, but I really see, some challenges. And where those exist within maybe just those rubrics, those 5 areas, soon to be 6. As far as where you guys go next, I don't know if I have the recipe for that, but if there was this pattern of kind of like this rhythm of the smaller group comes together, taking information from what happened both in this morning, because this morning was about information, making sure that building administrators, some district folks, have a sense of what's happened since December. Where are we going? Well, there feels to be there's some movement. Either that feels good, sometimes it doesn't for some, but that's where we're at. We're moving forward. Maybe that small group coming back together, taking stock of that and saying, now let's make sure we're intentional about what we believe our next steps are. Communicate those out, but maybe do some work in between and then bring a group like this back together. If this group says, yeah, there's value, I want to stay connected. Not at the same level of maybe that working group, that smaller team, but we still want to stay connected, and maybe there's a few other people that aren't here that should be here to make sure that this is something that as you have change, as people come and go, the group that doesn't is the kids. Our kids stay, our kids are here, and what do we owe those students? So there you might settle into a rhythm like that, a pattern like that, of kind of moving in and out of a larger group to stay connected. Information will get feedback. Here's what we believe our next steps are going to be. This is what we've taken since the last time. Here's where we believe we're going to go. But we come back and check the pulse of the group. Are we still on track? Still in agreement? Are there any new things that have come up that are going to stall this effort? Because we want to address those, predict those, and make sure that we then can continue to move forward. So I don't know if that's a roundabout way, but I don't think there's a right answer. You just have to decide what works best here as we think about this. To me, I sense this is something new. I don't think you've done this type of computer science work before. But you've done initiative work before. So there's always this thing of, well, I can think back to, like I told you, I've been 32, 33 years now in education. I can think back to some really good things that didn't really move forward. Had they, it would have been incredible. But it didn't. And so even thinking about, if I don't want that to happen here with this, if I truly believe that our kids deserve this stuff, because we know what kind of workforce they're going to move into. We know that's true. Do we either say, congratulations, here's your diploma, good luck on them trying to find a way to understand that, and they're going to be steps behind. Like, I think about my son. What caused my son to very quickly catapult through DigiPen, to becoming this lead programmer, there were some steps before that he took that put him in that position. It wasn't just luck, but he had a skill set that was very well honed for an entity like DigiPen to not only graduate him, because he went to school there for 4 years, but then they said, whoa, we want to hire you. We want you to stay here. We see value in what you can do. And that had to do with his skill set. And that goes back to that video that Angelica showed you.
Anything else that you're seeing on there in terms of what you guys are already doing at your school? Is there something that you can see that could be our sort of push off for our committee this afternoon to really be looking at? Or something that you're aware of as you're getting ready for next year, which it seems crazy that we're already planning for next year, but we are. But as we're getting started and getting ready, is there something that we should be aware of as we're starting to build this? Or say we already have these classes and this is where we think we should be focusing on? Is there Yeah.
Betty, when's the deadline to submit new frameworks for next year?
April 14th, or 15th.
Okay.
So that's something that, from a CTE standpoint, that we need to be aware of if for next year, is that any frameworks that we're going to submit for classes that we're going to offer from CTE standpoint have to be submitted by April 14th.
Okay. So I know the Teals, which school district had the framework? Was that?
Walluke, no, excuse me, here in Walluke. Easton School District, Dawn Bechtold, the principal of the high school, or principal across the district, she shared out a framework. But there's some neighbors just to the north in the ESD 171 region. They're ahead of us as far as the number of schools using Teals, almost all of them doing CTE. So I don't know if it was Manson. There's a couple districts I could maybe get you in contact with if you said we'd like to take a look at their frameworks.
But so that's something that we can, have those conversations on if we want to bring Teals in. And remember, Teals, great program, but it has to be that first period of the day. It's, we have to sort of fit into that, whoever that expert's schedule is, and most of the time it has to be before 9:30, I think. And so we'll have to really make sure that if we decide to apply for Teals, that's something we can fit within our schedule.
And keep in mind too, with Teals, they do prioritize their application. So if you're thinking at all of doing that, but there may be some caveats that you want to be aware of, I recommend get the application in, because when they tell me that they prioritize, to me, I think they've got a quota. They've got a number somewhere that they're saying, okay, well, we've really got it. There's our line we draw. We have enough applications. So you want to get that application in if you're thinking at all. There's no harm, no foul if during that process you say, you know what, we're not going to do that. Ellensburg was ready to apply. They went through all of their initial steps. They didn't get their teacher in place, and so they had to back out. But there was nothing other than the man hours, just the sweat equity of putting the application together.
All right. Okay, so if you do have any concerns that, come up as you're going, through planning and that kind of stuff, please shoot me an email, and I have a folder that I try to save all the computer science related stuff to that. And that stuff that I can bring up to our next meeting that we can then really focus. I just want to make sure that all of the work that we do is very much not a waste of our time. And it's going towards something that we have a specific goal for. This is our plan, this is what's going to be happening next year at the first day of school, this is what we're doing. And this is what we're not going to be able to reach that time, but that's what we're going to be doing for next spring or the next year after that. Making sure that all of it has a specific vision, and so we want to make sure that we're answering those speed bumps, and we're able to answer those immediately without having to backtrack a whole lot. All right, so we are. Do I have anything else?
I just want to. People go to another story. Really. My son Ryan, that I mentioned, before he decided to attend Digipen, he's pouring concrete. So this is a son that got in a lot of trouble at 19, which is a long age. He wasn't a juvenile, got in a lot of trouble. So then when he is ready to start working, he knows where he stands because he has some baggage. He's got in trouble. It wasn't small stuff, it was significant stuff. So he has a high school classmate that is running a concrete company. And Ryan says, I don't do that. And I said, I would tell him, Ryan, you're the hardest worker I've ever seen. If I had a crew, doesn't matter what it would be, I'd have you on it, because you're a hard worker. But with I say, God-given talent, you should not be on the working end of a shovel. You have gifts other than that. And through that first time at the ESD, I came aware of Digipen. We took a tour, and he went, kind of interesting. Now, I could have not known about Digipen. He could have never gone down that lane. And he would possibly be maybe his own company. Which is fine. This kid walking down, any of your kids walking, if you walk through the high school here at Walwood, how do you know which one of those is like my son? How do you know which kid has some skill and interest as they just walk, as they're transition time, class to class? Nobody could have picked my son out of a crowd and go, you know what, I think. In fact, he was he went to East Valley, I went to East Valley. He came home his freshman, one of the first days, and says, Dad, it's not going to work out very well because they think I'm you. ASB president, a really good kid. I only got sent to the office for kissing my girlfriend in the hallway, who's now my wife. But that I didn't get in trouble. And Ryan's going, oh, Dad. Huh. because he was not wired like that. Like, he wasn't me, but he was a kid walking down a hallway. He ended up with some talents that now, because of where he's at, fully exploiting, fully utilizing these talents that he has. There's nothing special about Ryan. Ryan has skill that an entity like DigiPen said, hey, we could use you. But he's no different than any other kid at Walwick High School or at the elementary or the middle school. Kids that we need to expose kids to avenues. Just this chance thing of saying, Ryan, let's go up and do a family visit at DigiPen. He's not a gamer. And DigiPen was founded by Claude Pommier, a Lebanese developer, who brought Nintendo to the United States decades ago, who then thought, oh, let's create this entity where kids can come to school, learn programming through a gaming kind of an environment. Their mantra is, if you can code a game, you can code anything. And these people that exit, either out of UW, their computer science program, or DigiPen, they go on to all of these crazy careers like we saw that video. But Ryan wasn't a gamer. He had an affinity towards some of this and likes to solve problems. And if we can find those avenues for our kids, to me, I think that's why we want to, that's the heavy lift. That's why we want to do, even though, yeah, staff, there's going to be some challenges. And yeah, staff, we've got to look at this from a different angle. But why? Like I was talking with Lucy about populating your district with posters with your kids. Third graders that are in garb that look like a computer scientist, that look like an engineer. So boys and girls of all different ethnic groups that are represented in your area. So that parents and kids alike are going, I see myself in that. Toppenish used to be have a program called Renaissance. And he sold these Klingon graduation caps you could put on a mirror. Just the outline of it. So any student, any age could come up and see themselves with that graduation cap. Because that's you. You're going to graduate. Or think of these other ways to be able to show your kids of any age, that's you. Whether it's a high school kid, Toppenish did them with the Got Milk campaign, with some high school kids that are the milk mustache. But it wasn't Jennifer Lopez. It was, a student that was on the basketball team or football team. So a lot of ways that thinking through how do we get our kids to see themselves. Like Ryan thought, I think I can see myself in this. Boy, I think you guys are on, you're ready to embark on the heavier lift, but it's worth it. Even if there's another student just like Ryan that's just down the hallway, that someone steps up and says, hey, I think you should take this class.
All right, so